And we have a very special guest. This is Noah Herrin, everybody.
What's up?
Come on, everybody in the room. Let's give it up in the chat. Say what's up. He is a speaker. He is an author. We're going to talk about that in a second. Husband.
Yeah.
Got married last year, or
Praise
you've been married
God.
for a year?
1 year.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But you have a book that just came out called Viral Jesus, and it's a topic that we've been, it's super important to talk about, first of all. So I'm glad that you wrote it. Available now, short plug, on Amazon.
Yeah.
But we're gonna be talking today, just helping you get some wisdom around social media. I think, especially in quarantine, people are spending a lot more time.
Yeah, that For You page is popping right now.
For real. And the thirstiness to get on the For You page is also going pretty strong.
Yes.
Can't lie, I've tried.
You've tried?
Yeah.
No success though?
No.
That surprises me because you kind of look like Justin Bieber with the little stash and the blonde hair.
Hey, I'll take that all day long. You hear that, Bieber? Looking at you, because he's totally tuning in right now. But today, I'm super excited to talk about this. You know, I think it can be really difficult waters to navigate, and I think trying to figure out what our faith has to say about engaging on social media is super important to talk about. But
yeah,
I love to kind of start this little interview by just asking what your thoughts are on pros and cons of social media. What are you seeing? What are you noticing?
Yeah, well, first of all, pros, like we probably wouldn't be having this service tonight without social media, right? Like 10 years ago, quarantine hits and it's a lot harder to still have church like this through social media, through YouTube, all these different outlets. So much creativity that has come from social media. So many avenues to really spread the gospel digitally, stay connected with people digitally. Those, I think the pros start there. The cons, I think, really start when you go from trying to use social media to social media using you. And I think that's
so true, dude.
I think that starts happening when we spend excessive amounts of time on social media. I know for me, it's really hard as a follower of Jesus for me to actually hear from God when I spend too much time on social media. I think too much digital distraction can lead to spiritual disconnection.
Well, that's a good word. Say that again. Spiritual distraction. Say that whole thing.
Digital distraction can lead to spiritual disconnection.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times in my life, like if there's a moment where I'm just not hearing from God or I feel kind of disconnected spiritually from Jesus, it's also normally the same time that I've spent way too much time on my phone.
Yeah. But why? Why is that? Is it because like it's taking our mind off of, I don't know, spending, is it just the little time it takes? Or is it the headspace?
Yeah, I think it's gotta be both, right? Like, I think part of it is the time, but then there's this other part of following Jesus where, I say this all the time, my wife and I have this saying, like we want our relationship with Jesus, our communication with Jesus to be like a telephone, not a megaphone.
What do you mean?
Like you can get caught up into just like praying at Jesus and like telling him about all the stuff going on in your life and then just kind of put it down and not listen to what he has to say.
Yeah.
And I think social media really makes it easy for us to do that. Like go to church and we're like, yeah, we love you, Jesus. And then we just like put down the megaphone and we pick up our phone and get on social media and we don't really allow space for quiet, allow space for hearing the voice of God.
Yeah, it's so true. What about like, what are some of the traps you see people walk into?
Man, I think a big one, especially for young people, well, really anyone is, if you're a follower of Jesus and you're like, hey, I want to be pure, you know, I want to live a life of purity and holiness the way Jesus calls us to, but then you follow like a whole bunch of people on social media who like cause temptation in your life. You want to just get real?
Get real, dude, come on.
Like girls be like, or guys be like, oh man, I want to stay pure, you know, I want to follow Jesus. But then they follow like 20 girls who post nothing but bikini photos. Yeah. And it's like, hey, like this is going to be really hard to do, really hard to stay pure when you're tempting yourself like this. You know, maybe you should unfollow them. Same thing with girls, you know, girls like, oh, you know, I love his heart, you know, like that's a horrible girl voice. But
I love it. I love his heart, especially
so
when his shirt's off. That's where I love his heart the most. You know, it's like
I can see it beating. You know?
Totally.
But I think that's a big trap. Is like we think that because it's digital, that we can handle it because it's not real. But that temptation a lot of times can take root through something like a screen. And so I think we have to be really careful the content that we're taking in.
That's so important. Like so important to make sure that the people that we're letting really influence our mind and our heart are people that are going to be building us up, not like leading us down a path that God doesn't want us to go down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Talk about your faith in Jesus when it comes to social media. Like what does, like for the people watching out there, if you're trying to follow Jesus, how should that inform the way you engage on social media?
Man, you know, there's this thing called the For You page, right? On TikTok. And if anyone has a TikTok, you can follow. No, I'm just kidding. There's this For You page. And what I've learned from my time on TikTok is everybody wants to get on the For You page because everybody wants to go viral, right? And I was thinking about this, really the point of the book was thinking about all of the viral people in life and how they went viral, whether it's online or offline. And most of them were forgotten completely. All of them were forgotten largely, except for Jesus, right? Like everyone was like, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna go viral, and I'm gonna make the most of myself. And then Jesus comes along and he's like, hey, I'm gonna make the least of myself. I'm gonna become the least of these. And yet he became the most viral person of all time. And so really got me thinking that maybe the way to live a viral life, a life that impacts people, is not as much about how many followers you can get, but how well you follow Jesus. And so
I love that.
I think when we make Jesus our goal, when we make following Jesus our goal, we actually have a much bigger impact than we could ever imagine because we allow him to move in our weakness.
Dude, there's so much there that is gold. I love that. I love that image and that thought. What about like guardrails? I know you talked a little bit about who you follow. Maybe on the more practical side of things when we're engaging in social media, what are some things that like we can make sure we put in our lives, some guardrails, some boundaries that we can put in our life to make sure that we, you know, grow in our faith in Jesus first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Speak into that.
Have you checked your screen time during quarantine at all? Have you checked that?
It makes sure that I know though.
So
it like shows up, I'm like, dang it, 25% more than last week.
Like, how's that possible?
I'm like, I binged all of The Office last week. How am I now 25% more?
Man, it's. I looked at that in like April or May, and I was so ashamed of how much time I spent on social media. And so something that I started doing back, I think it was the first week of May, was trying to like challenge myself every week to spend less time on it and replace that time with the things of Jesus. And in the beginning, you know, that sounds very like rule whatever, like, oh, you know, you sound like my mom or whatever. But I promise you, it has changed my life. It really, really has. At the beginning, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have FOMO. I'm gonna miss out on so much that's happening online. And what actually happened was I realized all that I was missing out in real life when I got off my phone. And so something that I would strongly urge students listening to try is like, look at that number for your screen time for the week and just make it your goal to spend 1 hour less and replace that time with reading your word, with, you know, listening to this sermon a second time and going through your notes, or listening to worship music, allowing space in your life for Jesus to speak to you and see if it changes your life. It absolutely changed mine, and I'm excited to hear how it goes.